In 1513, a broken man sat in a cold, dark cell. He had been tortured, his arms nearly ripped from their sockets. His crime? Knowing too much about power. That man was Niccolò Machiavelli, and what he wrote next would terrify rulers for 500 years. They banned his book, they burned it, the Pope condemned it. But here's the thing: every king, every president, every CEO who ever held real power, read it anyway. Fear, respect, power control. Machiavelli didn't just write about politics. He decoded the brutal, unspoken rules of human nature. The rules that determine who gets walked over and who commands respect without saying a word. Today, we're going to dissect his forbidden wisdom, not the cartoon villain version you've heard about. The real Machiavelli. The one who understood that in a world of wolves, being a sheep isn't noble, it's suicide. The fall from grace. Florence, 1512. Machiavelli was at the peak of his career, Secretary of the Republic, diplomat, trusted advisor. He had negotiated with kings, popes, and the most dangerous warlords of his era. Then the Medici family returned to power, and overnight everything collapsed. Machiavelli wasn't just fired, he was arrested on suspicion of conspiracy. They used a torture method called the strappado. His hands were tied behind his back, and he was hoisted by a rope until his shoulders nearly dislocated. 6 times they dropped him. 6 times he refused to confess to crimes he didn't commit. When they finally released him, he was exiled to a small farm outside Florence. Broken, humiliated, forgotten. But here's what his torturers didn't understand. They had just created a monster, not a monster of violence, a monster of insight. In his isolation, with nothing left to lose, Machiavelli began to write. He had watched power from the inside for 14 years. Now, stripped of everything, he could finally tell the truth about it. And that truth would be more dangerous than any army. The mask of virtue. Here's the first lesson most people get wrong about Machiavelli. They think he said, "Be evil." He didn't. He said something far more unsettling. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. Think about that. In every interaction you have, people aren't responding to who you actually are. They're responding to the version of you they perceive, and perception can be crafted. This isn't about lying. It's about understanding that humans are lazy thinkers. We take shortcuts. We judge by appearances. We fill in gaps with assumptions. Machiavelli watched princes destroy themselves by being transparently weak, openly emotional, or naively honest. Meanwhile, he saw ruthless men gain power by simply appearing virtuous, while doing whatever was necessary behind closed doors. Appear virtuous, stay dangerous. If this revelation about human nature is changing how you see the world, hit like and subscribe for more forbidden wisdom that shapes history, because what comes next will disturb you even more. The mask isn't deception, it's survival. And Machiavelli knew that those who refuse to wear one are simply wearing a different mask, the mask of the victim. Fear versus love. This is perhaps Machiavelli's most misunderstood teaching. He asked a simple question: is it better to be loved or feared? His answer shocked everyone. It is much safer to be feared than loved, if one must choose. But here's what people miss. He didn't say fear was better. He said it was safer. There's a profound difference. Love is conditional. People love you when you give them what they want. The moment you can't deliver, love evaporates. Watch how quickly friends disappear when someone loses their money, their status, their utility. Fear, however, creates consistency. Not terror. Terror breeds rebellion. But the fear of consequences creates respect. Think about the people you don't cross. Your boss, the law, that friend who will absolutely call you out on your nonsense. You respect them not because they're cruel, but because you know there are lines you cannot cross without consequences. Machiavelli understood something crucial. Humans don't respect those who cannot hurt them. This doesn't mean you must be violent. It means you must have something to protect, something to enforce, and the willingness to defend your boundaries. The danger of mercy. Here's a pattern Machiavelli observed that will make you uncomfortable. The most merciful rulers often cause the most suffering. How? By trying to avoid small acts of cruelty, they enabled large catastrophes. Every time you forgive disrespect without consequence, You teach people that disrespect is free. Machiavelli watched leader after leader destroy themselves through excessive kindness. They pardoned traitors who betrayed them again. They showed mercy to enemies who used that mercy to regroup and attack. They prioritized being liked over being effective. Think about your own life. That friend who repeatedly crosses your boundaries because you never push back. That colleague who takes credit for your work because you're too nice to confront them. That family member who disrespects you because they know you'll forgive anything. Enabler, your mercy has become their weapon. Machiavelli's solution wasn't cruelty for its own sake. It was strategic severity. One firm boundary enforced immediately prevents 100 future conflicts. As he put it, cruelty well used is done once, quickly, for security, not drawn out and repeated. But this leads us to something even more dangerous to understand. Never be neutral. Most people think staying neutral in conflicts is smart. You don't make enemies. You keep your options open. You seem reasonable to everyone. Machiavelli called this the fastest path to ruin. A prince who remains neutral will always be hated by the loser and despised by the winner. Think about what happens when two people are in conflict and you refuse to take a side. To the eventual loser, you were useless when they needed support. They'll remember your abandonment. To the winner, you were a coward who hedged your bets. They'll never fully trust you. Neutrality equals weakness, but here's the deeper problem. Neutral people have no allies. When your moment of crisis comes, and it will come, who will stand with you? Not the people you abandoned, not the winners who saw through your cowardice. You'll face your enemies alone. Taking sides is risky, but risk is the price of respect. People admire those with the courage to commit, even when they disagree with the commitment. They despise fence-sitters who try to please everyone, make decisions, take positions. Accept that some people won't like your choices. The ones who respect conviction will respect you. The ones who don't, we're never going to be true allies anyway. The art of timing. Machiavelli was obsessed with a goddess named Fortuna. In Roman mythology, she controlled luck, chance, and opportunity. And Machiavelli believed she controlled about half of human affairs. Fortune is the arbiter of half our actions, but she still leaves the other half to us. This wasn't fatalism. It was realism. You cannot control everything. Markets crash, people betray you, disasters strike. But here's what separates those who recover from those who don't: preparation. Machiavelli compared Fortuna to a flooding river. When rivers flood, they destroy everything in their path. But if you've built dams, channels, and embankments during calm times, the flood becomes manageable. The time to prepare for disaster is not when disaster arrives. It's now, when things are calm, when you have resources and clarity. Build your defenses, your skills, your network, your savings before you need them. Machiavelli watched countless princes fall not because they were unlucky, but because they had wasted years of peace assuming good times would last forever. When Fortuna's wheel turned, they had nothing to hold on to. But there's another element to timing that Machiavelli considered even more crucial. Boldness wins. When facing uncertainty, most people hesitate. They gather more information. They wait for the perfect moment. They try to minimize risk. Machiavelli saw this as deadly. Fortune favors the bold, and she is a woman who must be beaten into submission. The language is harsh, even offensive to modern ears, but the principle endures. Opportunity doesn't wait for the cautious. While you're analyzing, someone bolder seizes what could have been yours. Every moment you hesitate, you're choosing the status quo over possibility. Machiavelli observed that young men, hot-blooded, impetuous, reckless, often succeeded where older, wiser men failed. Why? Because they acted while others deliberated. They committed fully while others hedged. They would rather fail spectacularly than die slowly through inaction. This doesn't mean being stupid. It means understanding that perfect information never arrives, that the window of opportunity closes quickly, that a good plan executed violently today beats a perfect plan tomorrow. Act now, adjust later. The people who disrespect you are counting on your hesitation. They expect you to absorb insults while you figure out the perfect response. Don't give them that comfort. Swift, decisive action, even if imperfect, commands more respect than brilliant ideas that remain ideas forever. Know your enemies. Machiavelli spent 14 years in diplomatic missions. He met with kings, popes, generals, and the most dangerous warlords of his era. And he developed a crucial skill, reading people, not through intuition, through observation. He would note how leaders reacted to pressure, how they treated servants, whether their words matched their actions. He studied their patterns, their weaknesses, their blind spots. Men are so simple and yield so readily to present needs that he who deceives will always find victims. Most people see the world through their own values. They assume others think like they do. They project their own morality onto people who don't share it. This is catastrophically naive. Machiavelli's approach was different. He asked, what does this person actually want? Not what they say they want. What do their actions reveal? What are they afraid of? What pressures are they under? What would they do if they had nothing to lose? Know them better than they know themselves. The person who disrespects you has patterns, triggers, insecurities. The more you understand their psychology, the more effectively you can predict, counter, and, when necessary, neutralize them. Study them like a scientist studies a specimen, without emotion, without projection, just cold, clear observation. The lion and fox. Machiavelli gave history one of its most enduring metaphors for power. A prince must be a fox to recognize traps, and a lion to frighten wolves. The lion is pure strength, intimidating, fearless. When a lion enters a room, everyone notices. The lion doesn't need to prove anything. Its presence alone commands respect. But lions have a fatal weakness. They cannot see traps. They charge forward with such confidence that they walk directly into snares set by clever creatures. The fox is cunning. It sees dangers the lion misses. It knows when to retreat, when to deceive, when to wait. The fox survives situations that would destroy the lion through patience and strategy. But foxes have their own weakness. They cannot intimidate wolves. Cunning alone cannot stop a direct attack from those who simply don't care about cleverness. Strength alone fails. Machiavelli's lesson is that you need both. You must have the capacity for force, the ability to become the lion when necessary. But you must also have the strategic mind of the fox, the ability to see manipulation, avoid traps, and outmaneuver without direct confrontation. Those who master only one will eventually face a situation the other was designed to handle, and in that moment they will fall. The final lesson. Machiavelli never returned to power. He spent his remaining years writing, hoping the Medici family would read his work and give him another chance. They never did. He died in 1527, still in exile, still hoping for redemption that never came. But here's the extraordinary thing. His failure gave us his greatest gift. If Machiavelli had been restored to power, he would have had every reason to stay silent about what he knew. Instead, exile freed him to tell truths that powerful men could never admit publicly. He stripped away the mythology of noble rulers and showed us the machinery underneath. The calculations, the compromises, the dark necessity of power. And 5 centuries later, his words still cut through comfortable lies. The Prince wasn't written for princes. Not really. It was written for people like you and me. People who want to understand the game being played around them. People who are tired of being naive. People who refuse to be disrespected anymore. Wake up. Machiavelli's ultimate lesson isn't about becoming ruthless. It's about becoming aware. About seeing the world clearly, without the comforting illusions that keep most people passive and powerless. That awareness is the first step toward respect from others and from yourself. Machiavelli showed us an uncomfortable truth. Respect is not given, it is claimed. Awareness, boundaries, action, respect. Through his suffering, his exile, his broken dreams, he gave us a manual for navigating a world that doesn't reward innocence. You now understand why masks matter. Why fear creates consistency where love cannot. Why mercy without strength becomes weakness. Why neutrality destroys trust. Why timing and boldness separate winners from dreamers. Why you must study those who oppose you. And why you need both the lion's roar and the fox's cunning to survive. The end justifies the means only when the ends are just, and the means are necessary. This isn't about becoming cruel. It's about refusing to be prey, about building boundaries that others dare not cross, about claiming the respect that will never be handed to you freely. If you made it this far, comment Machiavellian to prove you're among those who see the world as it truly is. The truth is never comfortable, but it's always worth knowing. History has more to teach us. Subscribe if you're ready to learn.